Hey, here I am, Andy XL, back again with another NFXL podcast. So, in this one, I'm going to look at the power rankings, the MVP race, and the who's in contention for the Offensive Rookie of the Year following Week Five's action. So, let's start with the power rankings. And a new number one, having moved up one spot from last week, the Detroit Lions. Coming into Week Five, I had the Eagles and Lions as the two teams who are most healthy and in the best form. After Week Five, the Lions still tick both those boxes, so they rise to number one. Falling down a spot to two are the Eagles. Their fourth quarter collapse to the Broncos cost them top spot, but they still look likely to put up a strong defence of their title. Up one spot to three are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another win short-handed and late kept the Bucs well on course for a divisional title. How good will they be when fully healthy? Could be a question that is answered come the postseason. Dropping down a spot to four are the Buffalo Bills, following a surprise home loss to the Pats, and it opens up the question: what have the Bills beaten in getting to 4-1? But that is what they are, top of their division and sharing the best record in the AFC. Is this loss the wake-up call they needed, or are they actually not as good as they have looked? Well, we'll find it out in coming weeks. Up three spots to five are the San Francisco 49ers. Injuries? What injuries? The win over the Rams shows this is a roster that is all pulling in the same direction, and now they are clear top of the division and likely to improve as they get healthier. They will be tough to pass in the NFC West. And the team that's got to do that drops one spot, the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams may have lost to the depleted 49ers, but were a better team in that game, in all honesty. They just got in their own way. As such, those are resolvable issues and mean the Rams are still going to be a dangerous team to meet this season. Climbing three spots to seven are the Indianapolis Colts, and as each week goes by, that has to be said of the Colts too. They're going to be a dangerous team to meet. Right. Uh, Up one to eight are the Green Bay Packers. A bye week that saw wins for the Lions and Vikings was not what the Cheeseheads were looking for, but they still look a pretty good team. And one of the biggest climbers, if not the biggest climbers this week, is up seven spots. The Jacksonville Jaguars get into the top 10 following a huge win over the Chiefs, which vaults them into my top 10 this week. At 10 down four are the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers lost season four back into the grasp of the Chiefs, potentially, but definitely the Broncos in the AFC West. Up two spots at 11, the Denver Broncos. They had a huge fourth quarter in Philly that lifts the Broncos two spots. Now they need to show some offensive consistency if they want to climb further. Dropping 5 to 12 and out of the top 10 are the Kansas City Chiefs. A late loss to the Jags sees the Chiefs playing catch-up in both division and wildcard race ahead of a tough game against Detroit. Dropping 1 to 13, the Minnesota Vikings, but that's just nominal, really, the positional change, because they've got a win that keeps them in the playoff picture. The Commanders climb 1 to 14. Their win and the Eagles' loss mean they are back in position on two fronts, i.e. in the division. They've got back in with a chance there now for sure, and they're in good position in the wildcard race. The Pittsburgh Steelers dropped one. Their bye week saw losses for the other three AFC North teams, but that looks a weak division right now. Time to make hay, Steelers, before the Ravens get healthier? That's the question there. Up three spots from 19, the Houston Texans. They're now ranked at 16. A big road win in Baltimore has not helped them much in terms of catching the Colts and the Jags, but sure has helped them in the wildcard race. The Seahawks, standing still at 17, played really well in a game that they lost late in the fourth quarter, but now chasing the 49ers looks tough, and the Rams for that matter, and they are in the middle of a monstrous wildcard race in the NFC. The Atlanta Falcons were 20 last week, they're 18 this week. Bye week saw them fall a further half game back of the Bucs, but other AFC results did their wildcard hopes little harm. And one of the teams they might be competing with, forget that. A team climbing from 21 to 19, the New England Patriots. Is the plan beginning to come together in New England? Right back in the divisional and wildcard races now and likely to improve as they go through the season. But the one plummeting down the list this week, last week's 11 is this week's 20. The Baltimore Ravens, humiliated at home, get healthy or go home, might be the situation for them now. The Arizona Cardinals dropped from 18 to 21. How on earth did they lose to Tennessee? Last in the tough NFC West and playing catch up in the wild card race too. Good luck, Cardinals. The Cowboys climbed two from 24 to 22. They can continue to show they can beat bad teams. They will need to beat some good ones if they want to make the postseason, though. The Chicago Bears were 22 last week to 23 this week. Like the Packers, wins for the Lions and Vikings dent their divisional hopes, and they need to improve if they are to stay in the wild card race. The Cincinnati Bengals drop another spot to 24, another loss, another bunch of INTs from Jake Browning. Not without hope in the AFC North, though. The Raiders stay at 25, even though they got hammered by the Colts. Geno Smith looks awful right now, and they look to have a long road ahead. The Giants stay at 26. Jackson Dart. Well, we had the good, then the bad. Let's hope the ugly is not about to follow. The New Orleans Saints climbed from 30 to 27. They got win number one on the board, but that was against another bad team, so they're still towards the bottom of the rankings. Similar can be said of the Carolina Panthers, who climbed from 31 to 28. They beat a bad team in week 5. Bryce Young question is still unanswered. It was game of two asked for him in week 5. The Cleveland Browns stay at 29 after another narrow loss. But those are games they need to start winning if they are to stay in contention. The Titans get from the bottom spot to 30 this week. The Cardinals gave them a win in week 5, but they still look poor overall. And then just the bottom two are the Miami Dolphins down from 28 to 31. No Tyreek, no hope. 32, the New York Jets down from 27. Winless and alone at the bottom. The only winless team. So that's my power rankings for this week. Let's look at the MVP now. Right. He was 5th in my list last week. He's now number 1. Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's averaging 257 passing yards a game, 2 passing touchdowns a game, and 29 rushing yards per game. Right now, I can't think of a player that's making more difference to his team than Mayfield. He's just pulling off some miraculous plays and getting his team late wins. And, he's making such a difference for them. So in terms of MVP, that's got to count strong for him. Another one up 4 spots to 2 is Jared Goff. He's averaging 237 passing yards a game and nearly 2.5 passing touchdowns a game for that high-powered Detroit offense. So he's got to be a contender. Lamar Jackson missed this week, but he still manages to get up to number 3 from 4 last week. 217 passing yards per game, 2.5 passing touchdowns per game, 41.5 rushing yards per game, and 1 rush touchdown this season. So he's not having a bad season at all. He's having a pretty good one. But Baltimore need to pick up if he's going to be considered for MVP. Josh Allen drops from number 1 to number 4 after the Bills' loss. He's doing well, though. 243 passing yards per game, just under 2 passing touchdowns per game, 42 rushing yards per game, and 3 rush touchdowns in the 5 games. 5 is dropping 2 spots, Patrick Mahomes. They lost last week, but like I say, Mahomes has been carrying them pretty much this season. 251 passing yards per game, 1.6 touchdowns per game, 38 rushing yards per game, and 3 rushing TDs in 5 games. That's a pretty similar line to Josh Allen. So if you're thinking Josh Allen's an MVP candidate, then Patrick Mahomes should be. 6, Jalen Hurts, down from 2. He's averaging only 178 passing yards per game, but that's never really been his strength, as is displayed again by only 1.4 passing touchdowns per game, as that Eagles offense is not really firing yet. He's had 36 rushing yards per game. So again, that's sort of in the similar bracket to Allen and Mahomes, and 4 touchdowns in 5 games. So not a lot more on the ground for him than those. So that's why he's below them. 7, Jaden Daniels. He's averaging 228 passing yards per game, one and a third passing touchdowns per game, and 40 rushing yards per game. And he showed this week how important, even, he's just a steady influence this week. Didn't have it by far his most spectacular game, but he showed how important he is to the Commanders. Right. 8, I've got Jonathan Taylor. Um, now, Taylor's had 613 scrimmage yards and 7 touchdowns so far this season, which will put him on target for 2,084 yards and 24 touchdowns this season. I mean, whether he can keep up the touchdown rate, who knows? But he's flying. And, for me, he's the more important player to the Colts than Daniel Jones. Jones is a lovely story, but Taylor's the difference maker there. So I think he should be getting MVP consideration if the Colts continue to thrive. 9, I've got Matthew Stafford. Now he's top of the passing yards charts, 1,503 passing yards this season, over 300 a game, and 11 passing touchdowns, which is 2.2 per game. So, as a pure passer, he's having an outstanding season. But the Rams would need to get past the 49ers in all likelihood for him to be an MVP candidate. And finally, I've got Bijan Robinson. Now, he's on pace for, after a bye week, 2,482 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns. So he's ahead of Taylor in terms of yardage, but way behind him in touchdowns. Just in a reference to, I'm saying Taylor's going to go north of 2,000 yards. Bijan Robinson close to 2,500. Taylor 24 touchdowns, Robinson 8 or 9. That's what they're on schedule to do. Just for reference, Saquon Barkley last year in his outstanding season had 2,283 yards and 15 touchdowns. So if either of Taylor or Robinson end up north of those numbers, they've got to be in MVP consideration, surely. Right, that's the MVP race looked at now. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, there's such a clear number one here. It's beginning to get to a stage of, what has to happen for him not to win it is the question I'm beginning to ask myself. And it's Emeka Egbuka, who has now got 454 yards and 5 touchdowns following a huge game in Seattle. A star is born for sure here. He looks like he's going to walk to this award as it currently stands. But number 2, Tyler Warren, is having a fine season too with 330 yards, and he got his first NFL touchdown in week 5. He might not end up winning the award this season. It's tough for tight ends to win it. But he's going to be a rival for Brock Bowers for years to come by the look of it. 3, Aston Deontay. The big name pre-season of the rookies, really, along with Travis Hunter. He's now had a second consecutive game with 100 yards from scrimmage, and overall has 411 yards and 4 touchdowns for the year. So he's justifying the faith I and everybody else had in pre-season. And Marion Hampton has 450 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns for the season. He got hurt in week 5. How bad that ankle injury will be one to monitor in terms of any chance he has of winning this award. Quinshon Judkins, like Jonty, 200-yard games in a row now, 409 yards and 2 touchdowns for the year on a struggling Browns team. Looks a fine prospect. As does Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 337 yards and 4 touchdowns now, following a monster Week 5 showing. 7, I've got Tetairoa McMillan. He's by far the best rookie wide receiver this season. Yeah, 351 yards, but he's yet to register a touchdown. He had another solid game in week 5, but it's time to start scoring touchdowns, Tet. So that's the next step for him. 8, Cam Scatterbo. He's now on 383 yards for the season with 2 touchdowns on another bad team, but had a costly fumble in week 5, which hurts him a bit. 9, Cam Ward. Well, he got win number 1, but it's basically given to him. but it still probably makes him the best rookie quarterback right now, and that's ahead of Jackson Dart. I've been doing good week, bad week bits. Well, that's the story of Dart's first two games for the Giants. He needs a lot of good wins from here on in to get into contention for this award. Now, I have sort of been asked, why isn't Travis Hunter featuring here? This is offensive rookie of the year. So for Hunter, it would only consider his offensive work, which he's beginning to get going. But so far, he only has 120, 182 receiving yards and no scores. So in terms of that's just over half of what McMillan's done. So not enough to get into contention as it stands. So that's my look at the team power rankings, MVP, and offensive rookie of the year for this week. I'll update my thoughts on that each week. So that wraps that one up. See you soon.